viewers, welcome back to my channel. So I have one final wedding related video planned and here it is, finally. My husband and I got married a while ago by now, almost 2 years actually, but we had the wedding party in February of this year, 2024, and I made some stuff for the wedding that I'd like to talk about and show you. If you've watched any of the other videos on my channel, you'll probably know that I made my wedding dress, but I also made some of the decorations that we used for the wedding. My husband and I had attended a couple of weddings together and his main response to them was more. So things kind of snowballed from there. The first thing I knew I wanted to make was these glasses. This was actually not my idea. My very best friend got married a couple of years before me and she started this tradition of collecting old jam jars and any other kind of jars, taking the labels off, and then we put this very rough, it's not ribbon, tweed twine around the top to give it like a bit more of a rustic feel. And then she used them for flowers and candles and it looked really pretty, and she kept them after her own wedding and she's lent them out, so they've been in 3 or 4 weddings I think since then. I knew we had a pretty large venue, so I collected my own to add to the collection, and then I also made these dried lemon pieces and added to some of them. We used them throughout the table setting for both candles and lights as well, and it's just such a nice touch to kind of continue that tradition that my friend started. One of the biggest things or most time-consuming things I ended up tackling was the table runners. Let me tell you, this was a saga. My husband and I went shopping for the fabric together. I really wanted his input. He was the one who said more, so of course he had to have some kind of input in the design. And he really liked this green fabric, and I thought it was just a tiny bit plain, but I really liked the other one. And we were originally going to have, I think, 4 long tables, and then some round tables as well. So that kind of added up to a lot of runners. So I ended up making a matching set like this for all of the long tables, and then for the round tables they didn't get the one on top, it was just the green. But I really liked how it gave a pop of color, and I was trying to lean into, I had created a color scheme and it was a February wedding. I didn't want it to skew Christmas, so we kind of hit somewhere in the middle with that sweet spot. The green fabric was a menace to work with. I mean, it was lovely to sew on and cut and all of that, but the amount of green dust that was just everywhere in the house every time I touched it was insane. I could literally, I was cutting it on the floor in the living room and my kitchen counters would be covered with a fine layer of green dust. Very excited to see the end of that project, and it took me a very long time. My mother actually ended up helping out and doing some of them as well, so thank you, Mum. But I really liked how they looked as a layering piece. The next thing I didn't make, I didn't entirely come up with it on my own either. My friend had also used something similar in her wedding, but I really liked the idea of having these wooden carved pieces as like layering pieces, also to corral the decor on the table so it didn't just seem like random things floating around. So I went out and bought a bunch of these in a couple of different sizes. So we had like big ones, medium, small, and scattered them around just to add another element or texture to the whole tablescape. And I think it turned out really, really pretty. I'm actually, I had planned this for so long and it's just so amazing to see it all come together and that my vision came true to life, and it looked really pretty. The next tiny DIY project was actually something our caterer had suggested. He suggested having maybe a laminated, or just some kind of version of the menu lying on the table so people could like follow along on what we were having. And I just made this quick. This is the same cardstock that I used for our invitations, more on them in a bit, and the same, I just hand wrote menu at the top, and this is the same font that I used for the invitation as well, and we printed them out, cut them out, and stuck them on. Again, they match the color scheme. It was a simple, quick thing to do. I think I made 2 for each table or something like that, and kept some for keepsakes, of course. Speaking of invitations, I didn't keep one. I should have kept a travel invitation because I've been on Pinterest, dangerous place that is, and I had gotten very inspired to do something more fancy than you necessarily normally do in Denmark. Wedding cultures are so different around the world. Wedding invitation hype hasn't quite gotten to the level in Denmark that I think it is other places. But especially since our party was like a weekend affair, there was a lot of information I wanted our guests to have. So I ended up creating out of this green cardstock our own folder envelope with like inserts for like info and like the main invitation, and then had a bow tied around them, and on the outside a little like calendar with the date marked with a heart. It was very, very cutesy, and my husband helped me, and we spent way too much time on them, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. If I can source any kind of pictures of this, I'll do it. It was fun, it was definitely not necessary, but I do regret not taking a picture. Another thing I did make, which I completely forgot to pull out of storage for you, so I'll maybe find a picture and insert here instead. We went hunting for pine cones. We just took a couple of walks in the wood. I think I started doing this almost a year before the actual wedding. Collected a bag, brought them home. I tried drying some of them in the oven to kind of get them to open up, but in the end, it smelled really, really bad, or it was a very intense smell, and the whole house smelled of it. So the batches I picked up later, I just left them to air dry on the top of our refrigerator. We have like an open space up there where they were out of the way. I did pre-wash them to get like the bugs out and stuff. And that meant that by the time the actual ceremony and party rolled around, they had opened up nicely, and they were just scattered throughout as like additional tiny decor. And it was a much cheaper way instead of actually buying them. And I have a whole bag of them still that I kept. I don't know what I'm going to use all of this for. Or maybe all of my upcoming parties will just have exactly the same theme. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I put a lot of effort into this. Probably should have ironed it. So I'm a bit of a tea fanatic, and I really wanted some pretty teapots to make like actual brewed tea with tea leaves and not just like the bags. A lot of tea that you get at like parties is not very inspiring. So I bought a whole bunch of teapots. I only kept the one of them. And unfortunately it's got a crack in the handle. We noticed it last weekend when we used it. So I think I'm gonna have to get rid of it because I would be afraid if I put water in it now that it would crack and fall off and someone would get hurt. But I had a bunch. I think I bought 4 more or less matching, and then the ones where you put a small candle at the bottom to keep them warm. I will say 10 out of 10 for aesthetics, 3 out of 10 for like keeping the tea actually warm, but it looked very cute. We had decided on doing our own floral arrangements, and a huge thank you to my mother and her husband, who actually ended up being the ones on the day who made all of the bouquets that were around. I had been in contact with a local florist and ordered some stuff from her. I actually ended up feeling like I hadn't ordered enough at all, so I kind of speed ran down to the local supermarket the day of and picked up some more because it just didn't look like very much, but my mother and her husband, they made so many lovely bouquets that we kind of sprinkled around. And then when I drove home, I found this, an entire roll more of eucalyptus still sitting in my car, which had never come in. But now it's a nice memory of the party. I just left it in this one to dry, and oh, good memories. I'll insert some pictures, of course, of how it all ended up looking. I knew that the elements I brought in myself were more going to be icing on the cake, but the venue we held the party at had a collaboration with a wedding planner who also rented out decorations. And my husband and I took a browse through her catalog, and one thing I immediately fell in love with, they also used it for like the promotional material of the venue, was string lights over the entire ceiling. It looked amazing. Definitely worth the expense. They actually put them up for us and took them down. That was part of the price, which very grateful we didn't have to do that. But that helped pull everything together and just made the evening magical. I also rented some small table lamps. I was really thinking about like ambiance and lighting, since it was going to be in February and the main part of the day would be in more or less darkness. So I didn't worry so much about other decor elements. I was really focused on getting that lighting really good. So that was more or less what I wanted to share with you. Other than you've had the party, everything is over, the guests are packing up to go home, you're stood with all of this stuff. What do you do with it? My mother, again, was amazing. She actually made little bouquets for people to take home, so the flowers were kind of dispersed in that way, so they didn't all just get thrown out. As for the teapots, I ended up donating a bunch of them. I didn't need 4 extra teapots, and unfortunately this one's probably going to have to go now as well. I kept some of I of course gave my friend back the glasses I had borrowed from her, which was an amazing way to get rid of stuff. And then I also gave away a bunch of I had way too many of these cut wooden boards, more than I could ever use again. And that was also the good thing about having rented some of the decor. Of course, just went right back. And then the other major thing was the table runners. Again, I had way too much. I think I bought 8 meters of fabric. And then we ended up buying more because there wasn't enough. It was stupid amounts of fabric anyway. I don't know if you'll have seen this already, but I cut some of them down to size to actually fit our dining room table, so I can both put them on lengthwise, and then I cut some of them down to be shorter so I could do like a double arrangement on the shorter width of the table as well. More vacuuming and green stuff everywhere, yay. I also gave a set away. My mother got a pair she wanted, and fun teaser for another video coming up. I actually used this fabric and some other leftovers to make a bag for myself, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to share. So this is most likely going to be the last wedding related video on my channel, but let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to share. And I hope you enjoyed all the pretty b-roll and pictures. We had an amazing party. I'm so glad we did it. And I never want to plan a party that size again, ever. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! This box sitting here, our photographer dropped off for us a while ago, and he put in some of the printed pictures. So I have this like cute little box. Aww. With some lovely shots of us. Aww.